Welcome to the Cove Podcast, your stop for PME on the go.
Welcome to the Cove Podcast. I'm your host, John Hargrave, and today's conversation, we explore uncrewed systems, in particular drones. It's about people, skills, and pathways. From kids, cadets, veterans, and current serving, drone racing is creating a community where technical, competition, mastery, and purpose all intersect. Joining me today is Lance Corporal Chris Quayle and Captain Tom Gash from the Drone Racing Association to explain why this sport matters, how it connects to modern capability, and where it's heading next. Chris, Tom, welcome. Thank you very much. I guess starting with you, Tom, you're a founder of the association. You've been there from the start. Let's go to the start. Where did it come from? How did it start? Why did you get involved?
Firstly, thank you very much for having us on the Cove Podcast. The sport in the Australian Army started in 2017. So back in 2017, we had a Staff Officer Grade 1 UAS, then Lieutenant Colonel Kieran Joyce. He was a big proponent of UAS throughout his career, and he was interested in the next adaptive and STEM sport that Army could look to for the future. He approached me while I was working in career management, said, "You've got a background in model aircraft and drones at the time. How would you like to explore what it would take for the Australian Army to start up a drone racing team?" And from there, the rest is pretty much history.
So how long ago was that?
That was around, I think, May 2017.
So it's been going for a while now. Did you have any initial pushback, a new concept being introduced, a new association, capability was emerging? Was it a struggle to get the association up and running, or did you find that Defence was receptive to such a different thing being brought forward?
Initially, we struggled a little bit, mostly due to a lack of membership base. So back then, it was quite a small sport within Australia. We didn't have a big pilot pool to choose from when we sent our first team to compete at the 2017 Drone Nationals. However, Army headquarters, Defence Force recruiting, Defence as a whole was really, really supportive of us, got behind us, helped us give us the funding and resources to get started and grow us to where we are today.
Did you have an interest in drones prior to this, or is this something that was introduced to you and I can do this, this is pretty cool?
I grew up around model aircraft. My dad was an engineer in the Royal Australian Air Force. So naturally, everything in our household related to aviation in some way. Prior to joining the Army, I worked in a hobby shop when the first Phantom drones started coming out to the shelves and the very early racing drones. So I had an interest in it before I joined the Army.
So that interest then naturally flowed over to what is a hobby within Defence as well now?
Pretty much. Essentially now I get to do my hobby for work. It's great.
What a dream. And Chris, yourself, you've come from an engineering or a hobby background with drones. How did you decide to get involved, or how did that story come about?
So firstly, thank you for having me here. Basically, a few years back, I was trying to experiment with different hobbies, something that was involved a lot of tech, but would also get me outside. So for me personally, background, I was a bit of a gamer growing up. I loved building computers, and so I was basically just looking for that next step up of something a little bit more involved when it came to like building and programming and all that things. And then a few mates said, "What about drones?" And drones popped up in the unit for a drone racing team. So I put my hand up for it and then, got into it.
So it was a hobby before you joined Defence. You found it then in Defence as well and continued?
Yeah, found it in Defence. The hobby came from Defence, yeah.
So I guess it's a question for both of you, this one. What surprised you the most when you moved from like flying model aircraft into drone racing? Is recreational flying very different then from the competitive racing scene? What were the biggest, shocks to the system, so to speak?
For me, I found the biggest shocks to the system were when you are flying freestyle, so not racing, you're just cruising around a park, you often have the ability to choose your lines. If you feel something that's not quite going right, you can wave off from it. There's no pressure. When you're racing, you're confined to that line. You've got to push for it. You're competing against 7 other people going around the track at the same time. So the pressure's really on and it's much harder to do what you want. You're kind of forced into that line.
What about you, Chris?
So for me, it's very similar to what Tom was saying. Like when you're flying freestyle, you pretty much you can go wherever you want and do whatever you want. But you're not really focusing too much on speed. You're just flying and enjoying the view and everything like that. And then when you start getting into racing, that's where like it starts getting like really competitive. You start like pushing the drone as fast as you can, your reflexes as well. And I was quite surprised how quickly I adapted to it, but then also how like I'm always still learning new skills when it comes to like fine motor skills. Definitely not as good as some of the young people though.
That's fair. Speaking of the races, we've talked about the racing. It sounds like there's 8 drones at a time on a field. Is that what it's called? Am I right on that? Is it a field or a course? What's the technical term there for?
We just call it a track.
A track. There we go. It's close, like motorsports, I guess. It's a motorsport theoretically. Talk us through a race day. I guess we might look at it both from the competitor and the behind the scenes and setting up. So Tom, I take it you'd have more experience in setting the courses and organising race days and tracks. Talk us through what that period of a lead into setting up a race might look like.
So normally when we're setting up a race, someone will be designated to create the track. That's typically a few weeks out. They'll then go into one of the simulators we use called Velocidrone. They'll build a practice track in there. We can take all the dimensional accuracy from that and put it in the real world so we can map out everything like they've done it. They'll then release it to the club, typically a week or two beforehand, and say, hey, here's the track we're flying this weekend. Get some practice in.
So it gives the flyers an opportunity to be well prepared, I guess, to get in straight into the track on the day.
Yeah, it gives them a good opportunity to practice it beforehand. There may be some obstacles in there that they're less comfortable with. Some people struggle with certain obstacles, like dive gates where you've got to come vertically down.
Well, I think let's talk through some of those obstacles. As someone who hasn't seen a drone racing track, it sounds like there's a number of obstacles. Talk us through different types of obstacles and how that might integrate into a race.
Sure. So we've got some basic building blocks that we use. So the first one is a flag. So pretty much what it sounds like, just a single flag on a pole, and that's typically used to go around the outside or force you to take the inside line. The next one we've got is a gate. So imagine a 2 by 2 meter steel gate with some fabric on it for visibility. You've got to fly through that. Your approach and flying through it, you can either go straight through, you can come over the top, invert and split S back through it. We can stack those vertically, so you've got to spiral up around the outside or spiral down, or we could do alternating split S's through. The other ones we've got are dive gates. So imagine the gate, it's now rotated, so the entrance is vertical, and we can do it where you've got to drop down into it and exit a certain way, or go up through it and pop up. And we merge all of those together to form a racetrack.
So I guess time-wise, how long does a race go for? Do you design a track to be a 2-minute track, a 5-minute track? What does that look like? Or is it purely up to the designer at the day to decide?
So that's when it really comes down to pilot skill. So we find that the top pilots will often finish some of the even more complicated tracks. They'll do 3 laps of it in sub 1 minutes all up, whereas some of the slower pilots will take 3 to 5 minutes to get around the track.
So the track complexity is really up to the designer at the day. I would imagine that there'd be beginner tracks and expert tracks, and the races are split between sort of novice divisions and expert, or is it all in, good luck?
Depends which club you go to. So we'll use the Brisbane Civilian Club, for example. We have some world-class pilots there, and they love designing challenging tracks, which means that everyone else is along for the ride. We do divide up into advanced, intermediate, and beginner. So typically you're racing with a cohort that matches your skill level, so you don't have someone really fast ramming up the back of everyone else. But we typically just race the same track, just sorted into ability level groups.
Yeah. So, Chris, as a pilot, you rock up on race day. What are the first things you're doing? What do you get your kit out, you look at the track. Take us through your sort of setup and getting into the racing.
Yeah, so when you get there, you pretty much exactly what you're saying. Like, so you pull out the kit, make sure everything's ready to go. You do test hovers, make sure like all the parts are working the way they should be, so that way you're ready for when they say go.
So when they do say go, I imagine in motorsport you've got a grid and you're lined up. Talk us through a race. What does it look like?
First things first, they're all starting on the ground.
Okay.
So it's not like they're all hovering in the air and so you say go and they go from there. You have different start positions. You have to excuse me if I don't remember the names exactly, but like some people, so myself.
You're the expert, so I won't know any better.
If they say go, you pretty much lift off and you start going away. And then you've got like your speed launches. So that's essentially where like the drone, you arm it, the props start going, you start giving more speed, but the drone, instead of flying, it starts tilting itself 45 degrees towards the track. And then when you hear that go, that's when everyone just sends it. And that's like the super fast takeoffs.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And that's up to the race organisers to decide how that's then moderated or set up.
I think that comes down to more pilot skill.
Yeah, gotcha. Yep.
So typically when we start a race, we've got some starting blocks. So we'll have those for up to 8 pilots. What Chris was explaining is actually called launch mode.
Yep.
So some of the more advanced pilots, if they're more competitive, will have launch mode on. So essentially the drone rises up on the front 2 arms and rests there up until the signal is given. So they give the signal, arm your drones. On the beep, go. And on go, they'll hit the throttle to maximum and it just launches.
The courses you talked about having a 2-metre gate, for example, you've got 8 drones trying to fit through this 2-metre gate all at the same time or very close to. How do you moderate? I mean, in motorsport, it's quite easy. If someone clips someone else, someone's generally at fault. Are crashes frequent? Do the drones clip each other? And how's that managed through a race?
So they absolutely hit each other all the time. How it's managed depends on what stage of the race. So we have a rule called hole shot. So that's between the start blocks and the starting gate. So once you go through that gate, that's when the timing starts. So if there's a collision before that, typically they'll restart the race and go again. If they collide after that, well, that's just drone racing.
It is what it is?
Pretty much.
You've had that experience, Chris, racing, or you've been pretty unscathed?
No, absolutely not. I've been hit. I've crashed multiple times, and definitely before that, before I get into that first gate.
You've crashed before the first gate?
I've hit the gate before. Once or twice.
Okay. So that's everyone wants to hear, a carnage story. You must have a great story about crashing a drone into something on a race. Because they do 150 k's an hour, so I imagine that would disintegrate.
Yeah, I had a mate. This wasn't in a official race. This was just a race as a hobby. We were racing, and at one point he got turned around and ended up going the opposite way in the track at the same time that I went through one, and we just head-on-head collision.
Was there much left of the drones?
Not his.
Not his. That's yours.
Mine somehow managed to pull off with just some bits and pieces of the actual props themselves missing. So that's the actual propeller. His took off an entire arm.
Okay, and is that salvageable, or is that the end of a drone?
That would be salvageable. It's just the way we build the drones, they come in like there's multiple different parts to put together. And so for one of the arms, it would be basically a simple job as depending on your framework, you could just unscrew it, put a new arm in, and make sure everything's all good to go.
We've talked about pilot skill with novice, beginner, and advanced. What separates a good pilot from an elite pilot? Is it reflexes, planning, discipline, something else? In your experience, what do you think?
It's actually a combination of all of those. So a really good pilot has a natural ability to them. What separates a good pilot from an excellent or top tier pilot typically is the time they've got to dedicate to getting on the sticks, putting in the time to practice, whether that be in real life or on the simulators. The hardware itself doesn't come into it so much anymore, but it's really a natural ability for fine motor skills, quick reflexes, and just time to practice.
So practice is key, like anything?
Yeah, practice is key, but it does really come down to ability as well. There's nothing quite as humbling as going to your civilian race and there's a 8 or 10-year-old who's been racing for 3 months and just absolutely destroys you.
You've got me off on a tangent here. It's a really good example of, I guess, this being a sport that anyone of any ability can really participate in as an all-ability sport. You must see in those races, as you mentioned, you could be racing an 8-year-old or an 80-year-old. It's not age demographic. It's how good you are as a pilot, I assume.
Yeah, essentially. It is an all-age, all-ability sport. It's really down to your motor skills and reflexes. So
how much, and this might be for Chris because I got sidetracked there. I was thinking, that would be humbling being flogged by an 8-year-old. You could still outrun him though. How much of drone racing is hardware versus software? Where's that competitive edge come from?
Yeah, so pretty much the software side of things, most drone pilots will use similar programs, and the same with hardware. But when it gets really competitive, it comes down to the actual pilot themselves and the skill, how much they put into it. Yeah.
You brought in some props today, and you've got one of your racing drones. So just grab that and talk it through it, being mindful, of course. Not everyone will be watching today, but there's a couple of things about this drone that I noticed straight away, and that was particularly around the angle of the camera. So perhaps just talk us through the drone and why they're set up the way they're set up.
Yeah, absolutely. So basically starting with the camera. So for those that you can see, this is just a 5-inch FPV racing drone. The camera,
so where's the 5 inches come from?
So basically it's just the measurement from one end to the other.
Okay, gotcha.
So
the prop circumference?
Yeah, so racing drone classes are divided into propeller diameter.
Gotcha.
So a 5-inch class drone has propellers that are 5 inches in diameter.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
there we go. All good.
But yes, so basically when the drones are racing, the cameras are fixed to a certain angle. That's pretty much up to the pilot's level of skill. That's the way I find it. So like the higher the angle, the more the camera is going to basically be tilting as it's flying around. And so the more tilt, the more speed you've got. So for me, this drone here, its angle is set to 45 degrees. So basically what that means is that if I want the picture that I'm seeing to be flat, like as if like I'm looking at you normal, the drone itself is probably going to sit at a 45-degree angle is what it's looking like. And pretty much that's how it's going to fly. Whereas some people, they'll have a higher angle, more aggressive, so it'll be a lot more higher up.
Almost 90 degrees.
I haven't personally seen a 90-degree one.
No, but that's an extreme case, I'd imagine. Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay. And you don't have a battery attached to that. I assume that just gets swapped out in between races.
Yep.
What's the battery life like on these things?
Short.
Short.
Yes. The more power you're going to put into the throttle, the more it's going to drain the battery quicker.
Gotcha. And are these drones smart enough that you can see in your FPV battery life remaining, or is it just a educated guess to swap out?
No. So basically with the goggles, so I have a pair here as well. I'll just grab them for a second. So these ones are HD0 goggles. So basically this is a digital drone. So we have digital and analog. And with these ones, when you're setting up and you're doing your programming, you link it up to a program, and you can basically go through and actually determine what you want to actually see on the actual screen itself. So one of those would be the battery, how much usage you got, as well as like the temperature of how hot the drone is running, because these things run very hot with that battery power pushing through it. As you're flying, it's the wind blowing on it that's actually cooling the drone down. And yeah, you can pretty much put anything you want on it. So as you're seeing it.
Gotcha. So once you've got those goggles on, are you blacked out to the world then?
Yeah.
All you can see is what you can see through the camera.
Yes.
You've talked about the camera angle. As it's sitting on the ground, it's looking up at 45 degrees. How does your spatial awareness work? How do you know where you are if you're wanting to land or go somewhere a bit slower or just get it to the starting block?
Yeah.
It's just experience. I mean, I think I'd be lost because you're looking at the sky 90% of the time.
Yeah, so it comes down to a bit of experience. So for me, very first time I'm flying, put the goggles on, it was like, whoa, bit of an out-of-body experience, especially if you're looking back at yourself in the distance. Like you're very
that
much...
would be a trippy feeling?
Yes, you definitely have this, like I've been removed from my body feeling. And occasionally, like you'll see dudes flying, especially the more newer ones, and as they're flying, they're doing like these little sway movements as they're trying to maneuver the drone, which is a bit funny to see. A rare case, you might see someone tip over altogether. But then as for like your field of view, essentially inside the drone, you're looking at a little screen, much like a TV screen, that's like obviously has its limits. So it does take a bit of practice to really understand what's around you and everything like that.
Because it's a fixed camera on these too, I think, which is important. There's
Yes.
no gimbal that you can choose to change the angle during flight.
Not on these ones, no.
Yep. It's a I imagine that getting used to it would be difficult and you'd probably crash a lot of drones in practice. However, you talked about a simulator, Tom, and so do you, Chris. Is most of the practice spent in the simulator or is it hands-on flying? Where do you get the best bang for buck?
For me personally, you always get a better feel flying in real life, but you do a lot of your practice and your time spent in the sims because of the skill, and depending on which program, which sim you're using, it can almost feel like the real thing. Yeah,
mate. What about you, Tom?
I find that for new people, a lot of time in the sim is actually beneficial. It's a lot cheaper to break things in the simulator than it is in real life. However, once you are up to a certain level, it's much more beneficial to get the practice in real life. However, if you are going racing that weekend and you want to fly the track, it's often a lot easier to fly the track from your study than it is to actually go out and set it up and practice on that before the race.
And you can do it any time, I guess, as well.
Yeah, 100%. We can absolutely do it at any time.
Is night racing a thing?
Night racing is in certain areas. So if you look at some of the really big events that happen in the UAE or in China, they have tracks that are really well lit up and they can race through those at night. We do have some night-capable cameras that we can fit on these as well.
For like a blackout racing series or something? Because that would sound like it would hurt if it hit me.
Not so much for racing, but they are low-light cameras.
Yeah, gotcha. We've talked about that, and we just talked about the ability you can do some low-light cameras. You've been doing this since 2017. Where have you seen the tech come from since 2017 to now? What does that capability gap now look like?
So the tech has come leaps and bounds since then. So I gave an Army professional development presentation last year where we talked about this. So essentially our computing power on board the drone has increased tenfold since where it was around 2014 to 16. So massively more powerful processors. We've seen the drone software come a long way, particularly with what we talk about stability and control. It's much better at filtering out unwanted vibrations and flying the way you want it to. We've seen a lot of the technology become miniaturized. So we've seen smaller cameras that are higher resolution, better quality. We've seen some of the radio gear get a lot smaller. We've seen the goggles increase in quality and resolution massively. So we've now got proper OLED screens in them. So it's much brighter. We've also got other bits and pieces like motors can now handle more power for the same size. And battery tech has slightly improved since then as well.
So as someone who's never drone raced, I think this is the sport for me. What's our barriers to entry, you think? Is it cost? Is it prohibitive to get into? How does that look like for someone who goes, yep, that's cool. I've listened to this podcast. I'm interested. What's the cost? Is it time? Is it money? What are we generally looking at?
So there's a few different ways that you can get into it. For Army members, one of the easiest ways that I encourage you to do it is make contact with your local makerspace. They ran a program last year called Rise of the Drones where they taught people how to use the simulator, how to build, program and fly what we call a tiny whoop, which is essentially a palm-sized indoor drone, and then race it. So that's one way to do it, through your local makerspace. If you're looking at getting into it yourself, you can buy a transmitter online, so what we call the radio. You can then plug that into your computer and fly on a simulator that way, or you can go straight into it and buy one of those palm-sized drones that we call a tiny whoop. We buy what we call a ready-to-fly kit, so RTF. That means that it comes with the goggles, the controller, the drone, and some batteries, and those typically are around the $400 to $500 mark.
It's interesting you've talked about the rise of drones, and we might talk about that crossover of hobbies to capability within defence. There's been a lot of public discussion about FPV. We see it all over the media from recent conflicts. Do you think there's clear skills from drone racing that's been translating across to these domains?
Absolutely. I think drone racing ties into a lot of it, particularly when we talk about DIY or home-built platforms. Pretty much all the technology and componentry is the same as what we use in a racing drone. Its use is just slightly shifted. So whereas we would build a racing drone for all-out speed, these ones are often built for payload capacity or increased endurance, things like that.
We see small ISR drones being used in the battalion. And Chris, you were talking about this, about being engaged at work with the drone capability there. Do you see a crossover? Are your skills absolutely relatable from what you might do as a hobby to what you're actually rolling out as a capability within a battalion?
Yeah, absolutely. When you're flying as a race, you're making split-second decisions. You're monitoring batteries, your signal, your feed on the camera. You're pretty much flying underneath a fair bit of pressure. You're trying to pretty much do everything that you would do in a race. You would definitely be doing on the military side of things as well. So the skills are very transferable.
Defence is great at training us to make decisions in stressful environments. So how important do you think that decision-making under stress and spatial awareness training that you might get through defence crosses back into your hobby, being the racing? Does it work both ways? You get skills in defence that make you a better pilot?
You can get some in terms of defence is really good at teaching people to remain cool and calm and collected under pressure. That's a really big thing when we get into the racing scene. Often, particularly as you move into the finals, we find there's a lot of unforced errors where people put themselves under too much pressure. They either miss a gate and have to go around and reattempt it, or they hit the gate and destroy the drone for that race.
So, Tom and Chris, from your experience, both racing drones as a hobby and with civilians and supporting drones within defence, what misconceptions exist about how quickly some of these skills can be generated?
So a lot of it stems from drone literacy in defence. A lot of the in-service platforms that we have, they're pretty much designed so that the operator just tells the drone what they want to look at or the area they want to go to, and the drone will either pilot itself there or do what the operator requires with very little further operator input. For these ones, we're talking about a much higher operator workload. So for example, the traditional multi-rotary UAS that most units will have, whether that's the Parrot, the old Phantoms, or the new Sovereign UAS that are coming in, once you release the sticks, it'll level itself out, hold its altitude, and just hover there. So the pilot doesn't need to do any work to let it hover in place. For something like this, it doesn't have any positional information for a racing drone, so it doesn't know where it is in relation to the ground, and it'll occasionally drift around with the wind, or there'll be slight drift inside the controller as well. So the pilot's typically working the entire time to keep it in the same position and working to keep the throttle to maintain the altitude as well. So very, very high operator input to hover. But however, once I let it go like this and just let the controls go, it'll keep cruising in that direction. So a lot of the misconceptions that exist around the skills required to fly this often come from a lack of understanding about how normal UAS work and how their control systems are designed versus how this is designed to operate and how much more pilot input is actively needed at every stage.
That's really interesting because I think the common misconception would be, or with most people's experience with the Mavic Pro, once you hover it, you can walk away, it'll stay there until you touch the sticks again. These have to be hands-on all the time or else you're going to lose it. They sound like they're easy to lose, by the way. Is that a common thing?
They can be easy to lose. Thankfully, one of the things that we're really, really good at, both in defence and in the civilian drone racing world, is we do what's called scrutineering before activity. So we do fail-safe checks. So we remove the propellers, power the drone on and power the controller on. We set the motors to spin, and then we turn the controller off. And what we're waiting to see is that within a second or two, the drone kills its motors. So we know that in the event of something going wrong, like losing link, it won't go too far. It'll just fall out of the sky for us.
I guess you're working off that positional data that you would be looking at landmarks through your FPV to go, that's sort of where it's gone.
Yeah, so essentially we're looking for visual navigation features. So whether that's, we're flying towards a certain tree in a park or whether we're flying towards a hill or something like that, we can do that. And we're really lucky in that the goggles can actually record that footage. So if we do lose it, we can replay it and figure out where it's likely to have gone down.
So we're seeing a huge amount of innovation in this space. Are we seeing the innovation for drones and defence come from the civilian racing sector, or is it being driven as a top-down defence approach?
We're seeing a bit of both. So at the moment, at the lower end DIY drones, such as FPV, we're seeing most of the innovation come from the civilian sector. So a lot of the advancements in flight controllers, which is essentially the brain of it. We're seeing a lot of advancement in speed controllers, which tell the motors to speed up and slow down. And in the software side of things. So in the last few years, especially even prior to Ukraine, we've seen a lot of advancements in the civilian hobby side outpace the development of some of the other platforms. And what we're now seeing is that some of the nations like Ukraine are now using open source hobby hardware that is commercially available, so the same stuff we use for racing drones, and adapting that with some custom firmware to add whether that's hardening to the signal, to the radio link, whether that's new features to the flight controller that can tell it to do certain functions. Essentially, we're seeing a fusion of open source technology with custom firmware that's now significantly outpacing military development.
What lessons do you think that from the drone racing community could apply more broadly to defence innovation?
There's a lot of skills that the drone racing community can give to defence. A lot of the skills that the team has acquired over the years revolve around programming, CAD design, so mocking up things in 3D on the computer, printing, so 3D printing, whether that's laser cutting, CNC machining, so cutting out the frames, assembling everything together, testing it, programming it. That can pretty much be directly tied into a lot of Defence's innovation activities.
You talked about the Makerspace and the Battle Lab project that just occurred. Would you like to talk us through that and what some of the aims were and what the outcomes were with the culminating activity? So
in 2025, Battle Labs had a Rise of the Drones competition, which is its first attempt to bring drone literacy at the component level out to the masses. So they got interested individuals from around the country, ran them through a several-week course at the Makerspace where they went through, hey, here's how you fly in the simulator, here's what all the components do, here's how we build them together, program it, test fly it, and then learn to start racing it. So we assisted with Battle Labs in the Makerspace. We helped with their LMP design, so how they taught the package. I actually took the assembly photos for them on a GoPro at the local Makerspace so they could roll that out everywhere. I helped with troubleshooting, so we had drone team members come down to the Makerspace, help teach people how to solder, help the kinetic guys with troubleshooting when something wasn't working as expected, and assisted with loaning equipment for the finals.
So what was the competition, I guess, at the end of the day? What did the finals look like?
So the local competitions were essentially a racetrack of the fastest people at each Makerspace. The competition threw a bit of a curveball at them. It was a more military-minded competition, so around camnets and different types of obstacles to locate different things. So it turned it into a bit of a hide and seek rather than an all-out race, and it tested their fine motor control skills in an environment where the pressure was different to what they would experience from racing. The pressure was getting close enough to see certain things without getting trapped in things like camnets.
So what were some of the obstacles that they were using as part of that final?
So as I mentioned, they had a few camnets. They had some other vertical obstacles. Sorry, I actually didn't see a lot of it beyond the Facebook stuff because I didn't go down. So
okay, there we go. Because I think I saw a tunnel in, same as you. I think I saw a tunnel in there somewhere as well, like a whole bunch of random stuff. It didn't look like a drone race, I guess, was the point I was making.
Yeah, it didn't look like a traditional drone race. Yeah. It was more of a drone orienteering.
Yeah, gotcha. Do you think we're going to see a revisit of this in 2026?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been in talks with the Brisbane Makerspace. They're looking forward to their 2026 schedule when they can start bringing it out, and they're hoping to get more people through this time.
Sounds like something that the boys in battalion would be interested in, Chris. Were the guys at work interested? Did you see much of an uptake from it from your end?
Yeah, actually, I did. We had a few members from my company from 89RR attend it, as well as I think one or two from my section were on that course as well, and they loved it and they learned a lot from doing it as well.
Tom, there's a lot of misconceptions about, I guess, licensing. Do I need a license to fly my drone? For those who are in civilian occupations, you need a civilian, license to fly. Is there a defence license? Is it the same as a civilian license? Is there any crossover in that space? What does that look like for someone in defence who wants to fly a drone?
So a few years ago, Defence rolled out the DREPL, or Defence Remote Pilot's License. So the DREPL aims to be a defence equivalent to the civilian remote pilot license, with a few other bits and pieces added. So we look at some defence-specific things like authorising officer for flying. We look at a few additional approvals, so things like beyond visual line of sight. So if we want to fly over some trees where we lose sight of the drone, or if we want to fly a few kilometres away. We look at things like above 400 feet operations. So if we want to fly over our normal ceiling, how we can do that. And then we look at if we want to fly at night, how do we do that? So the Defence Remote Pilot's License essentially builds on those civilian ones. So how do you get that? Firstly, your unit needs to have an approval. So there's things that we call ATO UAS, so an approval to operate UAS. For Army, that's controlled by Operational Airworthiness UAS. They're a cell within Aviation Command. Your unit can get in touch with them. They can tell you what the process is for getting the approval for the actual unit. You can then export the Defence Remote Pilot's License course and run the course. So similar to the civilian world, it forms a foundational license. And then once you start looking at, say, other qualifications, so if you wanted to get trained on the new Vector Scorpion system that the program office is bringing in, you can get that platform type added onto your license.
So it's doable, is a short answer.
Yeah, it's doable. It sounds really complicated. I understand that aviation regulations can be hard to navigate, particularly coming from the land side of Army. But we're here to help. The team at Operational Airworthiness UAS is absolutely phenomenal at what they do. They're there to help your unit, not hinder you.
Gotcha. So, Chris, if I'm now interested in drone racing, I find you in the unit and I see you're the guru at it, and I come and hit you up and I say, mate, what's your hot jungle tips? What do I need to know? What do I need to do? How do I start? What do you reckon? What are you telling me?
Yeah. So first thing I'm telling you is you've got a laptop. Cool. Jump onto Steam or another engine and download a simulator. Get some time on the sims because, like we discussed earlier, it's easier to break a sim drone than it is a real drone. And then as well as start doing research. Hit me up as well if you want to know more about it. Like one of the great things about this hobby sports is that your information that you can gather is not just limited to workplace. You can also, there's tons of information out there online. And there's also people that are involved in these communities that are just easy to talk to, and they'll happily spend hours helping you out when you get stuck on something like that.
So they're obviously very passionate about it, and
Yes.
they're going to fill you full of information, whether you like it or not.
Yes. And a lot of times someone will come ask us a short question. Perfect example, earlier today, someone asked me something about whether or not he should get a pre-built drone or parts and build it himself. And then I pretty much suggested, because he does have some time flying on other drones, I said pretty much start researching parts. Building it yourself is a lot more, it's a little bit more affordable, but it's also more fulfilling because you know exactly how that drone's going to operate because you build it yourself.
Well, you hope so.
Yeah. And I found myself, probably a simple 20-minute answer turned into like an hour and a half of me just waddling on about it.
But you've got the knowledge to share.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Tom, where to for the ADF Drone Racing Association? We're in 2026. You started in 2017. Sounds like there'll be a milestone soon. What's on the cards for the next 3 to 5 years?
So straight up, we've got a big activity happening in March. So we're hosting the 6th Military International Drone Racing Tournament, so MIDRT. It's going to be happening in Randwick from the 12th to the 14th of March. Get along on the 14th. It's time to coincide with the 125th anniversary of Army, where there'll be an Army Open Day. We're welcoming all spectators to come and check it out. Next year in 2027, that's our big 10-year anniversary. We'll be at the Avalon Air Show as usual, but we're aiming to make it bigger and better than ever.
Sounds like you've got a lot planned for the association. You have a Facebook page, I imagine, so the good old like, subscribe, follow if you're interested. Just find you on Facebook.
Yeah, you can find us on Facebook. The link will also be in the Cove Podcast. You can also reach out to us or reach out to me on the DPN, and I can tell you where to go and help you.
Well, Chris and Tom, thank you very much for your time today. Today we've seen how something that starts just as a sport can build skills, community and real capability. So thank you to our guests for joining us, and to everyone listening, until next time, this is The Cove.
Thanks for listening to the Cove Podcast. Explore our channel for more great audio PME content. Also, visit us at cove.army.gov.au for hundreds of additional resources. The Cove, the learning home of the Australian profession of arms.